Well, thank you all for excellent testimony, really superb. And this is, I think, a beginning of a dialogue, not a one-stop and move on. And I like submarines, but I share that with Senator Wicker. The only
Here,
condition-
here, the only thing I take issue with is she said a few. We need quite a lot more submarine.
I agree. The only condition he puts on them, they all have to be named after a city in Mississippi, but that's a small point. One of the issues that I see as I try to deal with these issues is that we have a problem bringing in new workers. We also have a problem at the supervisory level. And our discussions with people in the industry say that's probably one of the key things that are slowing them down. They can get by with younger workers, but without the supervisors, they can't leverage those workers. So, Mr. Taylor and Dr. Johnson, Dr. Lockwood, your comments.
Well, indeed, so I alluded to that. Thank you, Chairman Reed. We know that even in industries like the tech valley, in Silicon Valley, the tech industries, we can get the employees to come in. The difficulty is keeping those employees. And increasingly, the new difficulty is keeping people in middle management, in part because we've naively assumed that because one is a great mechanic, that one will be a great manager of mechanics. And so we take that person, we don't invest in teaching them how to be a great people manager. They hate the job, and the employees that work for them hate the job, and therefore no one wins, and that has led to the retention problem. So one of the areas that we strongly recommend the Department of Defense consider doing is investing in people management. It's not enough for someone to have the underlying technical skills. We've got to teach them, technically to do the job, but teach them how to manage people. Because listen, at the end of the day, we've all talked about compensation, and compensation does matter, but all of the data tells us that people will leave an employer if the only thing they're doing is making a lot of money but being mistreated, and they don't find that this is a good work environment. So people management work is a lot of the work that the Department of Defense should consider investing in.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, your comment.
So, Senator Reid, I think there's a good news, bad news aspect to artificial intelligence in answer to your question. The good news is there is definitely potential, and we can see it already in some parts of the private sector, to develop tools that will enhance the ability of supervisors to manage more effectively and perhaps make it more easier to transition to become a supervisor. So I don't think there's enough effort going into that. I think that would be something very good for the DoD to focus on also. But I think that the bad news part is there is also a tendency, and not I'm sure in this room, but elsewhere, to think about algorithms as replacing people and doing the work, and we can rely on them and we can close our eyes and the car will drive itself. That's a bad mistake. But what we're looking at, as Taylor already said, is different ways for people to interact with machines at the supervisory level. But I would emphasize making those manual jobs more attractive, more interesting, pulling younger people in with an AI element, not thinking about replacing people, because that will be a mistake.
Dr. Lockwood, please.
Yes, I'll just build on both of these gentlemen's remarks by noting I wholeheartedly support Mr. Taylor's cry for additional training. I'll note that among our defense workforce, that our uniformed personnel are frequently sent to special schools to learn managerial and leadership skills. However, very little investment is made in our civilian managers, and this is a critical gap that you can fill. I will note that some important changes have been made, some progress has been made in the area of leadership training for the acquisition workforce in particular, but leadership is different than management. So this is a key opportunity for the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In terms of addressing our problems, one suggestion that I think everyone made, directly or indirectly, is we've got this pool of workers, military personnel that we can transition. And just very quickly, because my time is expiring rapidly, if not already, Mr. Taylor, how do we encourage military personnel who are leaving the service to go into industries related?
Yes, we know that there currently exist transition programs, but we've got to double down on those. If we know that an individual is within 6 months to 12 months away from either retiring or completing their military service, we've got to give them the skills to make sure that they can translate that either to a role in the DIB, maybe not necessarily in the military, or within the private sector. So training them on how to become recruitable in the private sector would be the way to do it.
Thank you. My time is expired, and there's one other question that I want to, or comment I want to put on the table. One is, Dr. Lockwood focused on the acquisition forces in DOD and management training. One of the areas I think too is in the civilian companies, the contractors. My sense is they don't do that very well. Is Dr. Lockwood or Dr. Johnson?
I would respectfully take a question on the management within our contractual partners for the record.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Johnson?
I think you're pressing on exactly the right issue here, Senator Reid. I think that we're underinvesting in managerial capabilities across a large part of our economy. And of course, there's a big sucking sound as talent gets pulled towards the Silicon Valley type of sector, and the rest of the economy is neglected and underinvested in by itself, which is very counterproductive from an economic point of view and from a national security point of view. So I think this is absolutely top priority, in line with certainly what Mr. Taylor said, I'm sure, with what Ms. Lockwood will say later.
Last word very quickly, Mr. Taylor. Thank you very much.